Demon's Souls is a 2009 action role-playing video game developed by FromSoftware, under supervision by SCE Japan Studio, for the PlayStation 3. It was published in Japan by Sony Computer Entertainment on February 5, 2009, in North America by Atlus on October 6, 2009, and in Australia and Europe by Namco Bandai Games in June 2010. It is the first installment in what became the Souls series of games. Set in a dark fantasy world, players take control of a hero who has journeyed to the fictional kingdom of Boletaria, which is being ravaged by a cursed fog that brings forth demons who feast on the souls of mortals. The game has been described as a spiritual successor to the King's Field series of games. The gameplay involves a character creation system and emphasizes gathering loot through combat with enemies in a non-linear series of varied locations. It has a unique online multiplayer system integrated into the single player where players can leave useful messages and warnings for other players. Single-player game worlds, as well as joining other players in their world to assist them, or kill them. Upon its release, Demon's Souls was met with acclaim from critics, winning numerous awards. The game was praised for its dark fantasy art design, variation in combat choice and integrated online interactions. The game is particularly notable for its high difficulty level, with many critics noting it as a genuine challenge. The game Dark Souls, which itself spawned 2 sequels, is a spiritual successor to Demon's Souls, and was one of the inspirations for FromSoftware's PlayStation 4 exclusive Bloodborne. Gameplay. There are 10 starting classes, ranging from knights and barbarians to thieves and mages. Each class has its own starting statistics, gear, weapons and type of magic used, which all emphasize certain approaches to combat depending on the player's preference. As players kill demons, they gain souls which act as currency that can be used to buy, repair, and upgrade weapons, as well as increase player statistics such as strength, luck, and endurance. Along with souls, players can retrieve items such as weaponry and/or for upgrading. When a player is killed during a level, they are sent to the beginning of the level with all non-boss enemies respawned, and the player returns in soul form with lower maximum health and the loss of all unused souls. If the player manages to reach their bloodstain at the point where they were last killed, they regain their lost souls. However, if they are killed before then, the souls are lost permanently. Upon defeating a boss, the player can choose to respawn back to that location, marked in the form of an archstone. When not exploring a level, players reside in the Nexus, a realm of souls that acts as a hub where players can exchange souls, store items and travel between regions. After completing the initial portion of the first region, players can choose to progress through any other of the newly available regions. Gameplay can change depending on both the world and character tendency, which can be either white or black. Tendency depends on the actions of the player, such as helping or killing NPCs. When white, enemies are easier, yet the soul and items rewards are fewer. When black, enemies are stronger and give greater rewards. Players can manipulate their tendency to suit their current needs. Character tendency affects the player throughout, while world tendency only affects the region where an action was taken. Further emphasizing the challenging nature of the game is the increased difficulty upon completion of the story. After finishing the game, the player may choose to continue playing from the beginning, except with a 40% increase in difficulty. Subsequent completions increase the difficulty further by 8%. Online. When connected to the PlayStation Network, online play is integrated into the single-player experience. Throughout levels, players can briefly see the actions of other players as ghosts in the same area that may show hidden passages or switches. When a player dies, a bloodstain can be left in other players' game world that, when activated, can show a ghost playing out their final moments, indicating how that person died and potentially helping the player avoid the same fate in advance. Players can leave messages on the floor that can also help others, such as forewarning, safe or hostile positions, trap locations and tactics against enemies or bosses, among general comments. Cooperative play allows up to 3 characters to team up in the host's game world, where visiting players appear in soul form that can only be returned to their bodies when a boss is defeated. In competitive play, players can invade a player's adventure as a Black Phantom to engage in combat with the host player. If the Black Phantom kills the host, they can be returned to their body in their own game, whereas if killed themselves, the host gains a portion of the Black Phantom's souls as well as the Phantom losing a player level. The North American servers were originally scheduled to be shut off on October 11, 2011. However, Atlus decided on September 22, 2011, to keep the servers until the 31st of May 2012. However, a few days prior to the servers shutting down, there was an announcement made by Atlus stating that the servers would stay up for the foreseeable future. Furthermore, Atlus stated that there could be future extensions of the North American servers, provided user activity and interest remain constant. Plot: the game is set in the Kingdom of Boletaria, ruled by the aging King Alent XII. Because of his greed, the king searched for power and prosperity through a dark ritual of channeling the power of souls that brought unprecedented prosperity to Boletaria, until the deep fog covered the land's outskirts, cutting off the kingdom from the outside world. Neighboring kingdoms sent scouts to investigate, but none returned after entering the fog. It was only after Valarfax of the Royal Twin Fangs broke free from the fog that the rest of the world could be told of Boletaria's plight. By channeling souls, King Alent had awakened the Old One, the great demon residing below the Nexus. With the Old One's awakening, a dark fog had swept in, that within it unleashed demons who feasted on the souls of mankind, where those left alive without a soul became insane and violent. Without resistance, the fog slowly begins to spread beyond Boletaria. Many brave warriors attempted to breach the fog and save Boletaria, while others were swayed at the prospect of harnessing the demon souls. Either way, many were lost to the fog. The player takes control of one such warrior who breaches the fog and enters the Lost Kingdom. However, after entering the Palace Botanical Gardens, the protagonist is confronted by a vile demon, the Vanguard. If the protagonist manages to defeat the Vanguard, they are killed by the Dragon God, another vile demon in the form of a massive dragon. After dying, the protagonist, now in soul form, appears in the Nexus. In the Nexus, they are greeted by the Maiden in Black, a mysterious and blinded matron of the Nexus who gives them a quest to travel to each region of Boletaria and retrieve the demon's souls to gain power and eventually free the corrupted kingdom of Boletaria from the Old One. One by one, the protagonist slays the mighty demons that reside in many of Boletaria's notable locations: the Boletarian Palace, Stonefang Tunnel, Tower of Latreia, Shrine of Storms and Valley of Defilement. It is also in these places where they encounter the few remaining great men and women of Boletaria. Once the protagonist claims all the demon souls and has killed the archdemons of each area, the Maiden in Black leads them down below the Nexus to the Old One itself. The Maiden in Black beckons the Old One, who invites the protagonist inside where the now deformed King Alent XII remains. During the final battle, Alent claims that, because of humanity's own violence and suffering, the Old One is acting mercifully by putting an end to our tragic realm of existence. Upon Alent's defeat, his last words are a warning to the protagonist. "You fool. Don't you understand? No one wishes to go on." During the end of the game, the protagonist makes one last choice to either slay or walk away from the Maiden in Black. If the protagonist walks away, they have not succumbed to the temptation of the souls when the fog is lifted and the Maiden departs with the Old One back into the fog into its slumber once again, saving Boletaria and the rest of the world. If, however, the Maiden in Black is killed, they have become lustful for the power of souls. condemning the world with the protagonist as its ruler at the side of the Old One. Characters. Slayer of Demons. The Slayer of Demons is the title given to the player's character. The Slayer of Demons is a silent protagonist and many features of the character can be customized by the player. The Slayer of Demons is a lone adventurer who has traveled to Boletaria for reasons undisclosed. After first arriving to an abandoned military outpost, the Slayer is encountered and killed by a demon known as the Vanguard. If the player manages to kill the Vanguard, they will be killed by another demon which is fought later in the game, the Dragon God. The Slayer of Demons is later resurrected by the Maiden in Black in soul form. The Maiden later tasks the Slayer of Demons with the duty of finishing off all of the archdemons in Boletaria, which will also help the Slayer to regain their corporeal form. After killing all the archdemons, the Slayer of Demons and the Maiden in Black are granted access to the Old One's lair. In the lair, they discover a mutated King Alent who is quickly dispatched by the Slayer. In the end, the Slayer of Demons is offered two choices: either leaving the Old One's lair and let the Maiden lull the Old One back to slumber, or killing the Maiden in Black and become the most powerful demon under the Old One's wing. Maiden in Black. The Maiden in Black is a mysterious woman who acts as the keeper of the Nexus. Although she appears as a young human woman, she's actually one of the most powerful demons in existence, whose ability to harness and manipulate souls is only matched by the Old One. The Maiden in Black is known for her tattered black robes, for having her eyes covered in wax, and she can be seen constantly carrying a candle. The Maiden in Black acts as a guide for the Slayer of Demons as well as the main way of leveling up in the game. After resurrecting the Slayer of Demons, the Maiden tasks them with killing all the archdemons of Boletaria. After the demons have been slain, the Maiden in Black and the Slayer travel to the Old One's lair, where the Maiden uses her power to lull the Old One back to slumber. Her final fate is on the player's hands, since she can be left alone to contain the Old One or killed so that the Slayer of Demons can become a new powerful demon. The Monumental. The Monumental is the last surviving member of the Monumentals, a race of beings devoid of emotion and personal thought whose sole purpose is to help sealing away the power of the Old One. Long ago, mankind awakened the Old One in order to gain knowledge about the secret of the soul arts and the power to manipulate souls. However, the liberation of the Old One caused a horde of demons to be unleashed upon the world, with mankind at the edge of extinction. The Monumentals used their power to create 6 archstones to contain the power of the Old One and stayed at the Nexus in order to act as watchful sentinels of these archstones. Thousands of years later, King Alent awakened the Old One driven by a lust for power, causing the demons to wreak havoc in Boletaria. However, many of the Monumentals who helped with containing the Old One had perished, with only one of them remaining, thus lacking the power necessary to stop the Old One. The last Monumental trusts the Slayer of Demons with the mission of slaying all the archdemons with the help of the Maiden in Black, a demon with enough power to lull the Old One back to its eternal slumber. King Alent. King Alent XII is the main antagonist of Demon Souls. The aged King Alent wished for the kingdom of Boletaria to live in an eternal time of prosperity and wealth. After hearing rumors about the Old One and its ability to harness souls, Alent traveled to the Nexus to find the Old One, hoping to use the power of the soul arts to bring prosperity to his kingdom. Alent then became a servant to the Old One and gained the power to manipulate souls. However, the awakening of the Old One did not bring prosperity to Boletaria as originally expected, but instead it released a colorless deep fog that swept across the land, and with it, a horde of demons hungry for human souls. Alent, however, still worked as a servant to the Old One, clinging to the belief that the powerful demon will purify the world and save mankind from its painful existence. When the Slayer of Demons reaches the throne room at Boletarian Palace, they have a final confrontation against Alent, who has become incredibly powerful thanks to the power of the souls. After Alent is defeated, it is discovered that the Alent who had just been killed was just another demon created by Alent after his own image. The real Alent's voice is heard after the defeat of the false Alent and praises the efforts of the Slayer of Demons, inviting them to the Old One's lair. When the Slayer reaches the lair of the Old One, it is discovered that the real Alent has turned into a deformed monster due to the corruption of the Old One. Although the king tries to convince the Slayer of the supposedly good intentions of the Old One, the powerless Alent is mercilessly killed by the Slayer of Demons. The Old One is a powerful demon who is said to be the key to the soul arts, the power to create spells and other magical abilities by channeling souls. Long ago, it was awakened by mankind from its slumber, which caused the liberation of a massive army of demons on the world that would have exterminated mankind if it wasn't for the efforts of the Monumentals, who sealed away the Old One. Centuries later, King Alent, driven by greed and a lust for power, awakened the Old One again. The Old One then released a thick, grey fog that engulfed Boletaria and, with it, a horde of demons that ravaged the world. The Old One started harvesting human souls through its demons, causing its power to grow at an alarming level, which manifested through the fog, starting to expand and consuming other surrounding areas. In the endgame, depending on the player's choice, the Old One can be either lulled back to its eternal sleep by the Maiden in Black or continuing its soul harvest if the player decides to side with the Old One. In a plot twist, it is revealed in the description of an item known as the Talisman of Beasts that the god that is revered by other characters of the game like Urbane and his followers is actually the Old One itself, since the power of both sorceries and miracles emanates from the Old One.